The dusty road stretched endlessly ahead as we drove back home to the outskirts of the Navajo town in Arizona. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow over the rugged landscape that had been our companion for the long journey. Beside me, my father was recounting stories of his youth, his voice filled with nostalgia and laughter. In the rearview mirror, I caught glimpses of my friend, his eyes reflecting the same weariness and anticipation as mine. As we approached the familiar outline of our small town, a wave of relief washed over me. It had been months since I last saw my family, and the thought of being home, even for a short while, filled me with a mix of emotions. The town appeared unchanged, nestled amidst the vast desert terrain, its lights twinkling faintly against the darkening sky. Pulling up to my father's modest house on the edge of town, we were greeted by the welcoming sight of my family standing on the porch. My mother's face lit up with joy, and my younger siblings rushed forward, enveloping us in hugs and excited chatter. It felt surreal to be surrounded by their warmth after so long on the road. After unloading the last of our belongings, we settled into the comfortable familiarity of home. The air was filled with the aroma of a home-cooked meal, and laughter echoed through the walls as we shared stories of our adventures on the journey. Outside, the desert night began to settle in, casting shadows that danced playfully against the windows. Leaning back in my chair, I let myself relax for the first time in weeks. The tension of the road melted away, replaced by a sense of peace and contentment. I glanced at my father and friend, both lost in conversation with my family, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of the kitchen light. In that moment, surrounded by loved ones in our quiet corner of the world, I couldn't help but feel grateful for the journey that had led me back home. The night was dark and silent as we made our way back from the neighboring town. The headlights cut through the obsidian darkness, illuminating the deserted road ahead. The desert landscape stretched out around us, a vast expanse of shadowy mesas and prickly cacti under a star-studded sky. Suddenly, a figure appeared ahead in the beam of our headlights. At first, it looked like a large animal sitting in the middle of the road. My father slowed the truck to a halt, and we peered out, trying to discern what it could be. As the headlights fully illuminated it, my heart skipped a beat. It was unlike anything I'd ever seen before. The creature was massive, its form a bizarre amalgamation of canine and humanoid features. Its fur was dark and matted, its eyes gleaming unnaturally in the light. But what chilled me to the bone was its face. A twisted combination of a bear and a human, contorted into a grotesque mask that seemed to stare right through us. Beside me, both my father and friend gasped in disbelief. We were frozen in a mix of fear and curiosity, unsure of what to do next. Without thinking, I grabbed a flashlight from the dashboard and stepped cautiously out of the truck, my senses heightened and adrenaline pumping. The creature turned its head slowly, as if studying us with a primal intelligence. It emitted a guttural sound, a cross between a growl and a moan, sending shivers down my spine. My father called out to me to come back, his voice tinged with urgency and fear, but I couldn't tear my gaze away. As I took a cautious step closer, the creature suddenly jerked upright, its eyes narrowing into slits. In an instant, it leaped off the road with an unearthly agility, disappearing into the darkness beyond. My flashlight beam swept the area where it had stood just moments before, revealing only the swaying desert grass and the distant howl of a coyote. We stood there for what felt like an eternity, the silence broken only by the pounding of our hearts. Slowly, I returned to the truck, my mind racing with questions and fear. What had we just witnessed? And more importantly, where had it gone? The drive back home was filled with an uneasy silence. None of us spoke about what we had witnessed on that lonely stretch of road. The memory of the creature lingered in the air, casting a shadow over our thoughts. As we pulled into the driveway of my father's house, I glanced at him and my friend. Their faces mirrored my own feelings, unsettled and wary. Without a word, we gathered in the living room, the weight of our shared experience heavy upon us. It was like something out of a nightmare. My friend finally spoke, breaking the silence. His voice trembled slightly, betraying the fear that gripped us all. My father nodded solemnly, his brow furrowed in deep thought. I've heard stories, but I never thought... His voice trailed off, lost in the unsettling realization of what we had encountered. I sat down heavily on the couch, running a hand through my hair. "What do you think it was?" I asked quietly, almost afraid of the answer. They exchanged uncertain glances before my father spoke again. "Some call it a skinwalker, a creature from Navajo legend. They say it can take on different forms, tricking travelers or causing harm." My friend scoffed nervously. "You believe in that stuff?" My father's expression darkened. "After tonight, I'm not so sure what to believe." We fell into a deep discussion, dissecting every detail of the encounter. What had its intentions been? Why had it appeared to us? Each question deepened the unease in the room, leaving us with more doubts than answers. After hours of speculation, we came to a unanimous decision. Tomorrow we would seek guidance from the local residents, those who knew the legends and lore better than anyone else. Perhaps they could shed light on what we had witnessed and offer some semblance of understanding. But as I lay in bed that night, sleep eluding me, I couldn't shake the feeling that we had stumbled into something beyond our understanding. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that our journey had only just begun. The following day, we sought out the wisdom of the local residents and elders. We drove into town, the morning sun casting long shadows across the dusty streets. The air was filled with the scent of sagebrush, a reminder of the desert's timeless presence. We found ourselves in a small community center, where elders gathered under the shade of a large cottonwood tree. Their faces were weathered, etched with lines that spoke of years spent under the vast Arizona sky. We approached cautiously, our hearts heavy with the weight of the previous night's encounter. One of the elders, a woman with a gentle demeanor and wise eyes, welcomed us with a nod. "What brings you here, young ones?" she asked, her voice carrying the weight of authority and kindness. With trembling voices, we recounted our experience on the dark desert road. As we spoke, the elders exchanged knowing glances, their expressions grave and solemn. When we finished, there was a long pause, as if the desert wind itself held its breath. Finally, an elder spoke, his voice low and filled with ancient wisdom. "You have seen a skinwalker," he murmured, his words echoing through the silence. "A being of darkness and deception, born from old magic and fear." My father and friend exchanged uneasy looks, the reality of our situation sinking in deeper. The elders continued to speak, sharing tales of encounters with such creatures, of warnings passed down through generations. They spoke of protective rituals and charms, of ways to ward off malevolent spirits that roamed the desert at night. As the discussion unfolded, a sense of dread settled over us. What had started as a curious encounter now felt like a battle against forces beyond our comprehension. Yet, amidst the fear, there was also determination, a resolve to protect ourselves and our loved ones from whatever lurked in the shadows. By the end of the meeting, we were armed with knowledge and a plan. We thanked the elders for their guidance and promised to heed their warnings. As we left the community center, the sun hung high in the sky, casting a hopeful light over the town. But deep inside, I knew that our journey was far from over. The encounter with the skinwalker had changed us, marking the beginning of a battle against ancient darkness, a battle we had no choice but to face. Life in the small Navajo town seemed to settle back into its familiar rhythm after our unsettling encounter with the skinwalker. Days blurred into weeks, filled with the comforting routines of family and work that helped distract us from the lingering unease. Each morning, I woke to the sound of roosters crowing and the scent of coffee brewing in the kitchen. My father and I would head out to tend to the fields, the sun rising slowly over the horizon, painting the desert in hues of orange and gold. It was during these quiet moments that I found solace, focusing on the simplicity of the tasks at hand. Evenings were spent gathered around the dinner table, laughter and conversation filling the air. My mother's cooking was a comforting constant, her meals a testament to love and tradition. We spoke little of the night we encountered the creature, choosing instead to fill our time with stories of the past and plans for the future. Slowly, the memory of the skinwalker began to fade. It became a distant echo in the back of my mind, overshadowed by the beauty and harshness of desert life. The nights grew quieter, the desert creatures resuming their nocturnal symphony without interruption. Yet there were moments when I would catch myself staring into the vast expanse of the desert, wondering if we had truly escaped unscathed. The elders' warnings lingered in my thoughts, a reminder that the line between myth and reality in the desert was often blurred. But as I looked around at my family and the simple life we had built, I found strength in their presence. We had faced the unknown and survived. And as I turned my focus back to the present, I made a silent vow to cherish each moment, knowing that our encounter had forever altered my perspective on the world around us. The peace we had briefly settled into was shattered one cool desert night, weeks after our encounter with the skinwalker. I was outside checking on the livestock when I noticed something out of place, a set of large, unfamiliar tracks in the soft earth near the barn. My heart skipped a beat as I crouched down to examine them. The tracks were deep and clawed, unlike anything I had seen from the local wildlife. Fear crept up my spine, a cold sensation that tightened my chest. Could it be? I hurried back inside and woke my father and friend, their expressions turning serious as I explained what I had found. We gathered our flashlights and weapons, a mix of old hunting rifles and makeshift tools, and ventured cautiously into the night. The desert was silent, save for the distant howls of coyotes and the rustling of sagebrush in the wind. We followed the tracks carefully, each step heavy with anticipation and dread. They led us deeper into the desert, away from the safety of the town's lights. As we walked, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Shadows seemed to flicker at the edge of my vision, and the air felt charged with an unseen presence. My father muttered under his breath, his grip tightening on his rifle, while my friend scanned the surroundings with a nervous intensity. Suddenly, we heard it, a low, guttural growl echoing through the darkness. Adrenaline surged through me as we spun towards the sound, our flashlights revealing a glimpse of movement among the mesquite trees. "There," my friend whispered, pointing ahead. In the beam of our lights, we caught sight of it again, the same twisted form, a hybrid of man and beast, lurking in the shadows. Its eyes gleamed with a malevolent intelligence, its presence a chilling reminder of our previous encounter. My father raised his rifle, but before he could take aim, the creature let out a blood-curdling scream and disappeared into the night, faster than any natural creature could move. We stood there, hearts pounding, our breaths visible in the cold desert air. "We have to do something," my father said, his voice tight with determination. I nodded, my mind racing with possibilities. We had faced the unknown once before, and now it seemed the darkness had returned, refusing to be ignored. But this time, we were prepared. We had the knowledge and the will to fight back. As we made our way back to the safety of home, I couldn't help but feel a sense of grim resolve settling over me. The battle against the skinwalker was far from over, and we were determined to protect our family and our home from the ancient evil that lurked in the shadows of the desert. Night descended upon us like a shroud as we prepared for the inevitable confrontation with the skinwalker. We fortified our small homestead as best we could, securing windows and doors, while keeping our weapons close at hand. The air was thick with tension and anticipation, each moment stretching into eternity as we waited for the creature's return. The moon cast an eerie glow over the landscape, illuminating the familiar stretch of desert that surrounded our home. And there it was, emerging from the darkness, a shadowy figure with glowing eyes and a twisted, inhuman form. The skinwalker stood before us, a malevolent presence that seemed to defy the laws of nature. Without hesitation, my father raised his rifle and fired, the shot ringing out into the night. The creature dodged with unnatural speed, moving with a fluidity that belied its monstrous appearance. My friend and I followed suit, our own shots echoing in the desert air. But the skinwalker eluded us, darting between shadows and disappearing into the darkness. We pursued it, our hearts pounding with fear and determination. We could hear its mocking laughter carried on the wind, a sound that chilled us to the bone. The desert seemed to conspire against us, the terrain treacherous and unforgiving as we gave chase. Suddenly, the creature reappeared before us, its form shifting and twisting in the moonlight. It lunged with inhuman strength, claws extended, aiming for my father. With a shout, he managed to sidestep, narrowly avoiding its deadly grasp. I fired again, my shots hitting the creature's shoulder, causing it to recoil momentarily. But it was relentless. It slashed at us with razor-sharp claws, its movements a blur of speed and aggression. We fought back with everything we had, our minds racing with adrenaline-fueled desperation. The struggle seemed endless, each moment fraught with the threat of death. As the battle raged on, I could feel exhaustion setting in, my muscles burning with exertion, but we couldn't afford to falter. Not now. Not when our lives hung in the balance. With a final surge of determination, we pushed the skinwalker back, forcing it to retreat into the darkness once more. We stood there, chests heaving, surrounded by the echoes of our struggle. The desert lay silent around us, as if holding its breath. We had survived, for now, but we knew that the threat still lurked out there, waiting for another opportunity to strike. As we made our way back to the safety of our home, I glanced at my father and friend. Their faces were grim, hardened by the battle we had just endured. But amidst the fear and uncertainty, there was also a glimmer of hope. We had proven that we were not defenseless against the darkness that haunted our land. But deep inside, I knew that our fight was far from over. The skinwalker had tasted our resolve, and it would not rest until it had exacted its revenge. And so, we prepared ourselves for the long night ahead, knowing that the dawn would bring with it new challenges and the relentless pursuit of survival. The aftermath of our battle with the skinwalker left us shaken but determined. We knew we couldn't face this ancient evil alone. With the first light of dawn, we set out to seek help from the local residents, knowing that their knowledge of the land and its legends would be invaluable. Finally, one of the elders spoke, his voice steady and filled with determination. "We have faced the shadow of the skinwalker before," he began, his words carrying the weight of generations of knowledge, "but never alone. Together we can strengthen our defenses and protect our home." The community rallied behind us, offering their support and guidance. We spent days preparing, a mix of traditional rituals and modern defenses. Protective symbols were painted on doors and windows, while traps were set along the perimeter of our homestead. The air buzzed with a sense of urgency and purpose as we worked tirelessly to fortify our defenses. In the evenings, we gathered under the vast desert sky, sharing stories and strategies late into the night. The elders spoke of ancient rites and charms that had been passed down through the generations, each one designed to ward off malevolent spirits and protect the innocent. As the days turned into weeks, our alliance grew stronger. The community became a fortress of solidarity, united in the face of an unseen enemy. We patrolled the outskirts of town together, vigilant against any signs of the skinwalker's return. And return it did, testing our defenses with renewed ferocity. But this time, we were ready. Armed with knowledge and a shared resolve, we fought back as one, a collective force against the darkness that threatened to consume us. The nights were long and tense, filled with the eerie cries of the skinwalker echoing through the desert. But each dawn brought with it a renewed sense of hope and determination. We had forged bonds that transcended fear and superstition, drawing strength from our unity and shared purpose. As I looked around at the faces of my father, friend, and the local residents, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. Together, we had faced our greatest fears and emerged stronger for it. The battle against the skinwalker was far from over, but with our newfound alliance, we stood a fighting chance. And as we stood guard under the vast desert sky, I knew that no matter what darkness awaited us, we would face it together, as one community, bound by courage and the timeless spirit of the land. We found them gathered at the community center once again, their faces lined with concern as we recounted our harrowing encounter. The elders listened intently, their eyes reflecting a mix of fear and resolve. When we finished, there was a moment of silence, as if weighing the gravity of our situation. Finally, one of the elders spoke, his voice steady and filled with determination. "We have faced the shadow of the skinwalker before," he began, his words carrying the weight of generations of knowledge. "But never alone. Together we can strengthen our defenses and protect our home." The community rallied behind us, offering their support and guidance. We spent days preparing, a mix of traditional rituals and modern defenses. Protective symbols were painted on doors and windows, while traps were set along the perimeter of our homestead. The air buzzed with a sense of urgency and purpose as we worked tirelessly to fortify our defenses. In the evenings, we gathered under the vast desert sky, sharing stories and strategies late into the night. The elders spoke of ancient rites and charms that had been passed down through the generations, each one designed to ward off malevolent spirits and protect the innocent.